Hi, Cookie Kid. Here's another great story for you today. Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, a king and queen were blessed with a beautiful baby girl. They named her Aurora, and the whole kingdom celebrated her birth with joy and excitement. The king and queen loved their daughter dearly, for they had wished for a child for many years. To celebrate Aurora's arrival, they held a grand feast and invited people from all over the kingdom. Among the guests were 3 good fairies who came to bestow magical blessings upon the little princess. The first fairy stepped forward, her wand twinkling in her hand, and said, "I give you the gift of beauty, so you will be as beautiful as the morning sun." The second fairy smiled and waved her wand. "I give you the gift of song, so your voice will be as sweet as the nightingale's." Just as the third fairy was about to give her blessing, a dark cloud filled the hall and the air grew cold. A wicked fairy named Maleficent appeared, furious that she had not been invited to the celebration. "How dare you not invite me?" she hissed. She pointed her long, sharp finger at the baby princess and said, "I too have a gift for her. On her 16th birthday, she shall prick her finger on a spinning wheel and fall into a deep sleep from which she will never wake." With that, Maleficent disappeared in a flash of lightning, leaving the hall in stunned silence. The king and queen were heartbroken, but the third good fairy stepped forward. "I cannot undo the curse," she said gently, "but I can change it. The princess will indeed fall into a deep sleep, but she will wake if she is kissed by her true love." The king and queen were determined to protect their daughter from Maleficent's curse. They ordered all the spinning wheels in the kingdom to be burned and asked the 3 good fairies to keep Aurora safe until her 16th birthday had passed. The fairies took Aurora deep into the forest, where they lived in a small cottage hidden from the outside world. They disguised themselves as peasant women and pretended that Aurora was their own child. They called her Briar Rose to keep her true identity a secret. Aurora grew up happy and carefree, unaware of her royal heritage. She spent her days exploring the forest, singing with the birds, and picking wildflowers. The 3 fairies doted on her and taught her many things, but they never spoke of her past. As the years went by, the fairies grew more and more anxious. The day of Aurora's 16th birthday was drawing near, and they worried about Maleficent's curse. Still, they did their best to keep the princess safe, and Aurora never guessed that danger was lurking. On the morning of her 16th birthday, Aurora awoke with excitement. She danced through the forest, humming a sweet tune, dreaming of what her future might hold. As she wandered deeper into the woods, she sang a song about a prince she had seen in her dreams. Little did she know that her song reached the ears of a handsome prince named Philip, who was riding through the forest. Prince Philip followed the sound of the beautiful voice until he came upon Aurora, dancing among the flowers. The 2 spoke and laughed together, feeling as if they had known each other for years. Aurora found herself wishing she could stay with him forever, but she remembered her promise to the fairies to return home before sunset. "I must go," she said, her heart heavy. "But will I see you again?" Philip nodded. "I'll find you again, I promise." They parted ways, and Aurora hurried back to the cottage, her heart fluttering with joy. She told the fairies about the charming young man she had met, but the fairies grew pale with worry. They realized it was time to tell her the truth. "You are not truly Briar Rose," the oldest fairy said gently. You are Aurora, the princess of this land, and tonight you must return to the castle to meet your parents." Aurora was shocked and overwhelmed, but she followed the fairies back to the palace, wondering what the future would bring. When Aurora arrived at the palace, she met her parents for the first time. They wept with joy to see her, and the king and queen held her close, relieved that she had returned safely. They believed that they had defeated Maleficent's curse. But Aurora was sad. She thought of the young man she had met in the forest and wished she could see him again. That evening, Aurora wandered through the castle, feeling lost in her thoughts. As she climbed a tall, winding staircase, she heard a strange humming sound coming from a hidden room. Curiosity pulled her forward. Inside the room, she saw an old woman bent over a spinning wheel, her fingers twisting the thread. Aurora had never seen such a strange object before. "Come closer, my dear," said the old woman, who was really Maleficent in disguise. Aurora reached out and touched the spindle, and immediately she felt a sharp pain in her finger. Her vision blurred, and she fell to the ground fast asleep. Maleficent's wicked laughter filled the room as she disappeared. The good fairies rushed to Aurora's side, but it was too late. The curse had come true. They gently carried Aurora to the highest tower and laid her on a bed, covering her with a soft blanket. "She will sleep until she is awakened by a kiss from her true love," the fairies whispered. The three fairies, heartbroken, cast a spell over the entire castle, putting everyone into a deep sleep so that they would awaken with Aurora. The kingdom became quiet, and as time went by, thick, thorny vines grew up and around the castle walls. Meanwhile, in a nearby kingdom, Philip could not forget the beautiful girl he had met in the forest. He searched for her everywhere, but no one knew where she had gone. One day, as he rode through the forest, he came across the three good fairies. "Prince Philip," they said, recognizing him from Aurora's story. "You are the only one who can save Aurora. She is under a wicked spell, trapped in a castle surrounded by thorny vines." The fairies led Philip to the castle, where he saw the towering vines and heard Maleficent's dark voice echoing through the air. She appeared before him, transforming into a terrifying dragon, her scales as black as night, her eyes glowing like embers. The dragon's wings spread wide, casting a shadow over the castle. Flames flickered at the edges of her mouth, and her voice thundered through the air. "You shall never reach the princess," Maleficent roared, her fiery breath scorching the ground, turning the nearby trees into smouldering ashes. The fairies gave Philip a magical sword and shield, both shimmering with light. "Use these, Prince Philip," they said. "They hold the power of good, and they will help you defeat her." Philip gripped the sword tightly, feeling its weight and the warmth of the fairies' magic coursing through it. With his shield raised, he charged at the dragon. Maleficent swung her massive tail, smashing it into the ground with a force that shook the earth. Philip leaped out of the way just in time, rolling across the scorched grass. The dragon breathed a stream of fire, aiming directly at Philip, but he raised the enchanted shield, and the flames bounced off in a burst of sparks. He swung his sword at the dragon's claws, cutting through one of her dark scales. But she retaliated with a swipe of her tail, knocking him backward. Philip struggled to his feet, determination burning in his eyes. He knew that the fate of the kingdom and the princess he had come to love rested on his shoulders. He darted forward, dodging the dragon's snapping jaws and lunging claws, slashing at her with his sword. Maleficent reared up, spreading her wings wide and letting out a roar that echoed through the forest. Her shadow fell over Philip as she tried to pin him down with her sharp claws. But he rolled out of the way and struck at her side, his sword glowing brighter with every strike. The dragon unleashed another blast of fire, but Philip bravely rushed through the flames, his shield protecting him from the heat. As he got closer, he saw a weak spot in the dragon's scaled armor, a small gap near her chest where the scales were thinner. With all his strength, he leaped onto a large rock and then up onto the dragon's back. The fairies watched anxiously from the edge of the battlefield, sending small bursts of magic to shield him from Maleficent's fire. Maleficent roared in fury, thrashing and twisting, trying to throw him off. But Philip held tight, clutching his sword in one hand and using his shield for balance. He climbed up the dragon's back, his boots slipping against her slick scales, until he reached the spot where the scales were thinnest. Summoning all his courage, Philip raised his sword high above his head, and with a mighty thrust he plunged the sword deep into the dragon's chest. A flash of light erupted from the blade as it pierced through, sending ripples of magic through the air. Maleficent let out a deafening roar, flames and smoke pouring from her mouth as she twisted in agony. The ground trembled beneath them, and the dragon's wings beat wildly, stirring up a storm of ash and fire. For a moment, it seemed as though Maleficent would recover, her strength too great to be defeated. But then the light from the enchanted sword spread through her body, breaking through the darkness. She let out one final earth-shaking roar before collapsing to the ground with a thunderous crash. The dragon's body crumbled away, turning into a cloud of black smoke that drifted into the sky, carried away by the wind. Maleficent's magic was gone, her power shattered by the strength of Philip's courage and the magic of the good fairies. The thorny vines around the castle withered and fell away, crumbling into dust. The sun broke through the clouds, shining down on the castle for the first time in many years. Philip, breathing heavily and covered in soot, looked up at the brightening sky and felt hope fill his heart. Philip ran through the castle's halls until he reached the tower where Aurora lay, sleeping peacefully. He knelt beside Aurora's bed, his heart filled with hope. He gently kissed her, and at that moment the spell broke. Aurora's eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at Philip with a smile. "You've come back," she whispered. The two of them embraced, and as Aurora rose from the bed, the entire castle woke from its long sleep. The king and queen rejoiced, and the fairies danced with joy. Aurora and Philip spent the rest of the day together, and as the sun set, they walked hand in hand through the castle gardens. They knew that their love had conquered Maleficent's curse and that nothing would separate them again. Soon Aurora and Philip were married in a grand celebration, with the entire kingdom rejoicing. The fairies blessed their union, and the king and queen gave thanks that their daughter had been saved from the curse. Aurora and Philip ruled the kingdom with kindness and wisdom, always remembering the power of love and bravery. They made sure that their story was told throughout the land, a reminder that even the darkest spells could be broken. As for the castle, the thorny vines never grew back, and the sun shone brightly over the kingdom once more. Aurora's kindness and Philip's courage brought peace to their home, and they lived happily ever after. The end.